want to go to the sex part.
So we know we done with philanthropists if we on the sex part. The sex part ain't for free. That's not a volunteer situation.
Wait a minute, what is it? What is it? It's your
intimacy coach.
So by definition, all of my research as a psychologist is on how Black women communicate about sex. And that includes reproductive health, cancer awareness, gender identity, fluidity, anything that falls under human sexuality. But what we don't understand is it's different to be a Black female human in sexuality. And when I got into my PhD program, I was clear that my literature review would be nil because you didn't ask my grandmother these questions in your research. When I studied Masters and Johnson and everything they did with sex work and Kinsey and everything he did with orgasms, you did not ask anybody who's a part of my bloodline. So it's time to start asking the right questions because we have been breeding for you. We have been birthing the nation for you, for sure. But we have not got still enough and quiet enough to understand how much pleasure we're supposed to get, how much work we're not supposed to have to do, how much our body is supposed to belong to us, how many questions we're not supposed to have to answer, how many times we are supposed to be able to have orgasms scientifically and spiritually, but nobody cared to ask us anything. So my idea of researching us is to get us to ask each other the questions and teach our daughters how to ask the questions so we can advocate for ourselves and be better lives for you.
At what age?
I started at 15. And actually, I'm lying. That component starts at 15, but the nonprofit piece with Pretty touches on them understanding body positivity, and we started in 6th grade. So they're having mirror exercises and understanding what their body looks like, and I'm talking to them how I'm talking to you, like understand that America don't care. You gotta have a plan. And your relationship status can shift all these educational components. Like college look good until you in love and you wanna stay here with this nigga. We gotta convince you that you need to pick you. So we gotta start getting in front of it and telling our kids the truth.
Wow.
Man, did you hear this woman?
Yeah. Yeah. Hey.
Damn. Yeah.
6th grade though? Like, do you have how are the parents? Do most of their parents? Because I'm sure you get some type of consent. Do most parents consent or do something like that?
So I did early on. So Pretty is the nonprofit that goes into Chicago Public Schools, and we have that partnership. That's the work that we're doing in Jamaica when we work specifically with young girls before we got to catch up with what they already did. So we do have consent, we do the open houses, we do professional developments and all of that, but we've developed relationships where the students are asking for me back. So, shout out to Daya High School. They reached out and said, you're one of the partners that they like, but did you get Pretty back? Because we having conversations, but the parents that say no, it always makes me feel away. I will say that because it takes a village. And if you're uncomfortable, allow those of us that are to give them the tools they need to defend themselves.
Because they need it.
Because you got to get in front of a pedophile. We can't talk about rape if we can't talk about sex.
Right.
So what are you protecting them from? Your shame? You don't know what to say?
And I would think it would be different because the way these kids are so much advanced now.
Yeah.
They way more advanced now.
Everything on the cell phone.
Yeah.
Everything on the internet. No shit. Them Instagram and OnlyFans.
Yeah, we have a lot of barriers. Like there's no way to do this research without talking about religious barriers, without talking about cultural barriers that still put the blanket of shame, over the whole topic, right? So we think that we have evolved, and then Meg and Cardi come out with WAP, and they get dragged by more Black women than anybody else, right? So it's like, are we advancing, or do you want us to stay in the ladylike box where we're kind of told what to do? It's like who do you want us to be? Are we trying to be free or not?
And I definitely appreciate what Meg and whoever else you said, Cardi B.
Yeah.
But I hear the narrative is that sometimes it's too much.
It
So can it be too much?
And it's interesting. I was just on another show and they asked about the saturation in music and what does it do? And I said, well, entertainment is just for that. Like it's on your family and it's on your village to kind of direct you to know how to be able to balance it out. Like we can't put you in a watered down world, right? So if you're being entertained, whether it was me wanting to come in and Tupac when my mother just didn't understand why I wanted to hear, like what are you going through that you just screaming Tupac lyrics? Like how hard is your life? Like, and he just spoke to me. So when I think about the City Girls and Glorilla and, you know, many of the voices of free sex, I'm thinking that they're screaming for generations of like silence. Like we're just now in the generation where we're allowed to talk like this, because you know this is a world where your husband could commit you into an asylum for being disrespectful. Like you needed your husband to sign off for you to get a bank account. Like marital rape just became illegal in my lifetime, right? So it's one of the things where we are just now getting to the first time of things. So I'm appreciating them demanding orgasms and talking about getting their money, because wealth does free you from some bad decisions. And if you build it up now, when we see them when they're 50, it'll be like, oh, you remember how the City Girls used to be while they, you know, running an oil company or something. So I'm like, I appreciate the freedom, and especially if they have a plan.
But damn, you just educated me on that, because I never looked at it like that. I can't understand their music. Just give me a headache half the time. So that's dope. The way you broke it down and explained it, shit, you make me appreciate it.
I try not to judge before I ask the right questions. You know, and if it's a documentary that comes out about them, if it's something that comes out, I'm like, I want to learn about you. I don't have to be a fan of your music. But what I won't be is like the previous generation who didn't take the time to understand Tupac's history. Do you know his mom was a Panther? Do you know this? And I'm trying to explain it. And all they hear is whatever they felt they hated about hip hop.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Not understanding what Little Kim was doing for the movement and what she was going through to pioneer it. And just judging her because she decided to do a hardcore cover. It's like, bro, Playboy was in Chicago. Cut it out.
Okay.
Come on. Yeah, Hugh Hefner here.
Yeah. I'm born and raised in Chicago.
Okay. That is really somehow you break it down though, really. That is really something. That's some man.
Keep following your passion.
Shit, man.
Thank you. That's the goal.
Yeah.
To get it out.
Yeah.
Get it out.
Yeah.
Get it out.
Man.
So, talk about sex though. You're on Daddy's podcast, right?
Yeah.
So, on this sex topic, I got a question.
I got an answer.
Daddy's podcast. I hear like women say, yes, daddy, or you know, in any type of situations, yes, daddy, yes, daddy. What makes a woman?
Y'all nuts.
I'm just telling you. What makes a woman look at a man and say, you know what? I'm gonna call you daddy. Is it just words that they use just to make us feel good, or does that come from somewhere? Like, what makes a woman?
I think we have the option for word choice if we're being playful, which is always fun. Like we can say whatever if it, you know, sets the tone for what we're doing. But if it's true, it's oddly enough, Monique answered this question a couple of weeks back. I think she was sitting with Charlamagne, and I said, okay, that's kind of how I feel. But I was asked the question a few years back, and I said, well, I think about how far did my dad get me with where he was in life. You know, how far did my brothers get me with where they were in life? If I decide to date somebody in a different class system, because we all in, what do I have to learn?
When you say class, what you mean, like economic class?
Economic class.
Okay. All right.
You know, maybe they were, you know, from a black Greek family already, so they were in some black elitist groups already.
All right.
Maybe they were just from a different spot than me. They were not 99th Morgan, right?
Okay.
Their families were not 99th Morgan. So we have two cultures that have to blend, and some of my ways were absolutely ignorant. Some of my ways were absolutely wrong. Some of my ways absolutely clashed with any type of success I ever could have planned to reach. So I needed to continue to be raised. So I want you to continue to raise me, challenging my thinking, challenging my habits, challenging my eating, challenging my religion, challenging, you know, how I deal with my father, how I deal with my mother. You're challenging everything about me because that's how much you love me, because you chose me.
So we accept the word of being called daddy from a woman. That's a lot for a man.
That's
a lot.
And you provide.
You know, because most people I think of it like sexually type.
But when it goes there,
a lot.
But if you're teaching me, that includes sex. If we talking and you showing me things, so now wait a minute, you raising me on all these levels, and you doing different things to my body, and we trying different things, and you making me feel vulnerable, and you making me feel safe, on top of, you know, blocking for me when I'm into it with that relative that I always been into it, but when I got you here, that argument different, you know. When he's with me, you move different about me. That's my daddy. That's my protection.
Yeah.
So when I say it, if we having sex, yeah, it's gonna fuck you completely up because you know why I'm saying that.
Yeah.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, that's real. That's real.
So
Y'all
yeah.
heard that, man?
Who is this woman?
Shout out to my dad.
Definitely. I'm gonna let y'all have it. I ain't gonna get it. Yes, y'all. My man. Yes,
He was up drink to that.
He toasted his cup to that one. He back there chilling it out like, man.
Great to your point.
Hey, I'm not gonna drink
Yeah, me too, man. This woman here, boy, has come on this
That's good stuff.
podcast
That's
and
good
let
stuff.
it
Yeah.
ride.
Thank you.
Yeah, you